What it do, y'all, and welcome back to my channel. For today's video, I wanted to go ahead and do a roundup of a bunch of the eyeshadow palettes that I have been testing out behind the scenes and on camera, of course, in the last couple of months. So I've done only one palette roundup, or maybe none. I can't honestly remember. This year has been a lot of things have been going on. But if I've done a palette roundup this year, I will have it down below. But if I've done one, it's literally only been one. Because I haven't been picking up a lot of eyeshadow palettes, mainly because eyeshadow palettes haven't been the it thing, but also because I've been truly trying my best to streamline my purchasing, really only picking up the things that I truly needed and managing a budget, because that's always been a thing that I couldn't do. But anyways, let's get out of that. Let's talk about all of the stuff that I have been testing out this year. I went ahead and just put them all in this basket so that I could just easily access them. And I'm just going to pick them out, talk about the palette as I usually do. And then after I've talked about all the palettes, that's when I will do the ranking. So if you've never been to one of these palette videos with me, that's kind of how I do them. So first things first, this is the first palette. This is the Odin's Eye Gems and Jewels and Gems palette. This is, I believe, not limited edition. I don't really know. Odin's Eye does a lot of like limited edition, so it's hard to keep track, but I do believe that this is like a somewhat permanent palette. And as I said in my review of this palette and its sister, I feel like this was their way of bringing in something somewhat similar to their holiday palettes that they released and sold out and they never restocked. This is a beautiful, cool toned blue purple color scheme. I really like it. There are certain shades that are like my favorites, of course, but I will say the formulation in this palette is fantastic. I love the mattes. Their mattes are always going to be pigmented and blendable. Their shimmers are always great. As I always say, and to me, this doesn't hit the quality that the Solmon 2 palettes mattes hit, but everything else though, great. It's great, but I don't know, there's something about those particular mattes that just hit in a level that their mattes haven't again. But that's not saying the mattes aren't good. They are good. Those mattes were just like stupidly good, you know? So the other palette in that collection was their Stone and Rock palette, and I did go ahead and pick up both. As you can see, I will say I lean more and I'm more comfortable in this color scheme just because it's slightly warmer, and I do find that I have a warmer undertone, so I just prefer warmer shades on me in general. But this is fantastic quality, fantastic color scheme. Once again, great mattes, great shimmers. Definitely would recommend in the event that you are interested. Another palette that I picked up last year, and I just got around to kind of finalizing my thoughts, is the Unearthly Cosmetics The Weirdos palette. This was a palette that they released for Halloween, and I feel like we didn't actually receive them until like November-ish. This is fine. I'm not in love with this palette though. The mattes are good. The mattes are fine. This multi-chrome, as I said in my review, it doesn't work. I don't know what's wrong with it, but it quite literally does not work. So it's a complete dud. And the other shades are, it's fine. It's fine. But this isn't great. I was hoping for great. This color scheme is so interesting, so just unique for me. And that's why I picked it up. I really wanted to give the brand another go. There's sometimes I feel like the brand's palettes are great, and sometimes I feel like they just miss it. And I feel like, unfortunately, this palette, they just missed the mark personally for me. But you know, like I said, mattes are great. Every other shimmer other than this is great too. It's not perfect. Then we have, let's go with this one. This is actually sent to me from the brand, and this is M2U NYC. This is great quality. great quality. This is a great kind of no fuss, no muss formulation. Really nicely pigmented mattes, really nicely blendable. The shimmers are that, they're shimmers. They're not going to be metallic. You're not going to get really interesting textures or anything like that. These are straight up shimmers. But that could be perfect for you if you are somebody who wants a one and done look or a very natural look, or you want something you can throw in your gym bag, your work bag, and do on the go. This could be great. I could definitely see this eventually finding its way into my shop, my stash, where it's just an easy everyday palette that I can reach for and I won't have to think about it. I like it. It's great quality. I have no problems with it. None. Then we have the 3 collaboration palettes with Odin's Eye between, my brain is blanking. Between Baddie Bean, Amanda, and her channel name is Makeup Just for Fun. And then we have Lauren May Beauty, or Lauren. And Baddie Bean's real name is Betty Jean, by the way. So, we have these 3 collaboration palettes. I believe they are no longer available at this point. I believe they've already sold out. This palette is such an interesting color scheme. It's so bright. And at the time, I was fully invested in pretty much only wearing neutrals. So I picked it up because I knew I'd want it, but I didn't really get the full enjoyment out of it as I feel like I could get right now because I'm getting back into color. Color is starting to really intrigue me again. These are some really, really beautiful shades. Great matte formula, great shimmer formula. No duds in that palette that I have found. Then you have the one from Amanda Just for Fun, and this is the more neutral one, more kind of subtle, subdued color. I really like this as well. This is one that no matter if I'm really into color at the moment or really into neutrals, I would always be able to feel comfortable reaching for, which I appreciate. Once again, great quality, great mattes, great shimmers. I like the different textures in all 3 of these palettes. I love that you kind of get a mix of everything, which is stuff that I tend to reach for and want more often. Then last but certainly not least in this trio is Lauren's palette. Her palette kind of brings a little bit of both of those, right? In the concept of you get a quad of neutrals and then you get some very interesting colors that like you might not have expected to go with those neutrals. And I like it. I like it. I love the colors. This Elk one is more of a satin shade, so you do need to keep that in mind. You're not gonna get like a full matte or a full shimmer. It's a satin, so just be willing to be okay with that if you pick this up. But yeah, I like it. I like the palette. Once again, I love the color scheme. I love the mattes. I love the shimmers. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. So there is that. Then we have this Glam Light palette. This was the first time in quite some time that I had given Glam Light a go. I think prior to this, I picked up their ice cream palette and I picked this up and I have to say, this personal collection, this, and then I also reviewed the blush duo that I picked up and the lip duo. I'm loving Glam Light's formula. This is great. I mean, great mattes. They're pigmented, they're blendable, really great, interesting shimmers. They have some more sparkly shimmers here, but they also have some more opaque metallics, which I appreciate the variety in textures. There are a couple of these shimmers that I kind of wish were a little bit more opaque and saturated on my skin tone. But sometimes that just comes with the territory and I can just be a little bit too picky. You know, it's just a little bit too picky. But out of all of the things that I have tried from this brand, I will personally say this has been my favorite collection. Granted, I haven't tried the whole 9 yards. Glam Light's never been the brand that I'm going to buy everything from because they release a lot. But I am definitely very, very intrigued to potentially pick up some more things in the future if it works for me financially and if I'm interested in it. Then we have a Nomad palette. I have been on and off again in love with this brand. It just kind of depends. Sometimes I think their products are great. Sometimes I think they're not. They're kind of in that realm for me with Unearthly where I've had my moments where I love the brand and I've had my moments where I don't. I think this is a great palette. It's really, really great. It's extremely dark, but for me that works perfectly because I know I can actually get use out of all of the mattes. That has been one of the hardest things in my opinion with this brand, is traditionally they have like 2-3 mattes that are just too light for me that I can't get any use out of. And for me, yeah, you know, if it's a 20 pan palette, it's not that bad, but their palettes tend to be 18 at the most, leaning more towards 12. So at that point, you're missing like a third or a fourth of the palette because it doesn't work for you. So what's the point in picking it up? And then their shimmers can be hit or miss depending on the palette as well. I find that these are interesting shimmers for them. Some of them are straight up metallic. Some of them are metallics with some shimmery in it. So I like it. I like this palette. I like what it does. I definitely could see me pulling this out during the Halloween season this year. Am I going to be picking up anything else from the brand? I don't know. I know they are now sneak peeking some palette. They haven't showcased it, but they're starting to sneak peek it. Once again, it depends on if the products work for me personally. Then we have my first palette from Cosmic Brushes. This is the second palette. This is the second palette that they released, and what I will say is this is great. This is great. Great matte formula, blendable, pigmented, opaque, really interesting shimmers, interesting color scheme. This is definitely a brand in my opinion to watch out for. I actually recently picked up their latest palette, and I did do a 3 looks 1 palette on that. So if you're interested, go ahead and check out down below. Of course, I did comparisons between that and this because I happen to have these 2 palettes. They do have a third palette. I haven't picked it up. I'm not going to run to. Maybe if they do a sale, I'll pick it up just to have the full collection, but I'm not really interested in that one to really need it. But anyways, back to this palette. I really like how this is like a fall themed palette in my opinion, with the splash of some colors. It's really pretty. I highly recommend you trying to, if you're interested in the color schemes, I highly recommend looking into that brand. I really do. I have 2 smaller palettes to talk about. One is my Tom Ford Quad. So I picked this up at a CCO, and that's the only place that you'll catch me ever picking up a Tom Ford eyeshadow palette product really in general. And it has 2 matte creamed powders and then 2 kind of shimmer shades. This one is more of a traditional shimmer shade, whereas this one I feel like is more of a metallic, opaque metallic. I really like this formula. I don't want to say that I like it, but I do. This doesn't give off a very like burgundy color. I feel like on me it pulls a little bit more like a soft pinky coloring, which I actually don't hate at all. There was a quad that was more neutral toned. I might go back and get it. I might. I don't see me ever getting any of their quads that are all like shimmery based. I just don't see that. The part that I loved about this particular palette was those creamed powders. I really love those types of formulas. I love them in Natasha Denona, and I think I now love them in Tom Ford. Palette that I have to talk to you guys about is this matte palette from Huda Beauty. I want to say I picked this up once again last year. I've just been in like, it's been a long time for me to review quite a few of these palettes because I try them and then I don't go back to like get my final thoughts, and it just slows down the process. In this palette, you actually have 2 cream to powder-ish shades. So you have this one and then this one. So the people that have talked about this palette prior did not like the formula of those, but to me, I like the formula. I think it's fine. I think if you don't have a cream shadow that you want to use, like if you want to be on the road and be very compact with your makeup, this is perfect for me. I have a darker cream to powder so that I can have dark looks if I want to be smoky eye, or if I want more everyday looks or normal looks for me. Then I use the lighter cream. They make a nice little base. Are they like overly opaque, overly sticky like a concealer? No, but I wouldn't expect that. The thing about that though, as the thing about all of Huda Beauty's products, you have to be careful with the longevity of those particular products. So I always recommend working through those products, actually getting your money's worth of those, because those will dry out and not be as nice as the other shades in the palette will. Otherwise, I think the palette's nice. I really like it. For me, I love mattes over shimmers, so that's why I didn't hate to pick up this all matte palette. I don't find that I have any issues with any of the products creasing or anything like that. And I do have hooded eyelids, so yeah, I don't know. I like it. I like it. It's a nice little cute matte bland Betty Crocker palette that your girl enjoys. So okay, so I got cut off, which actually worked out perfectly. So I counted, I have 12 palettes here that I've talked about today, and what I'm gonna do is of course rank them. I've already taken the time to put them in their ranking, so I'm gonna have a bottom 6 and a top 6. And what I will say with this ranking, and there's truly only one palette that I personally would not recommend. I don't even think this palette is available still, so it's kind of null and void, but I still wanted to just mention it. This is the only palette that I would say don't get. Everything else is great. There's just small reasons why they landed in the spot that they landed, and I'll kind of talk to you guys about them in the order and why they landed there. So the one that I would say don't pick up is unfortunately this one from Unearthly Cosmetics. This is the Weirdos palette. Although I think the color scheme is great and I feel like the concept was really, really interesting, I feel in my opinion they didn't execute this the best. And yeah, I just don't see me picking this palette up again, and so that's why it ended up on the bottom. Next is actually the M2U NYC Beauty palette. There's absolutely nothing wrong with this palette, as I said before, but if I'm comparing this to all of the other palettes that have different textures, something interesting, unique about them, there's nothing interesting or unique about this palette. Is it going to be a workhorse in my collection? I surely hope so. But other than that, I mean, I can't say that this is going to beat something that has sparkly, shimmery, glittery shades, because to me, I'm going to reach for that sparkly, shimmery shade palette over this one. Great quality. I appreciate it and I would recommend it. I can't say that it's more better than anything else. Coming in at, I'll have the numbers on the screen because I'm always terrible at that. Next is this one. This is the Jewels and Gems palette, and it has nothing to do with the variety and textures or formula or anything like that. It's just the color scheme. For me, I'm just not going to reach for this palette more so than other palettes in this ranking, and it also doesn't give me a whole lot of depth. There's depth, but you only have this shade. This blue is not as deceptively deep in my opinion as it could be. And I don't know, like I said, because it's so cool tone, which not a problem. I picked it up knowing it was cool tone, but because it is so cool tone, I'm just not going to reach for it as much. And that, at the end of the day, is the main reason why that's not going to be the palette at number 1. Next, the palette that got, you know, the next spot is because there's variety here. There's variety in textures. There's variety in depth. I can use every last shade, which I thoroughly appreciate. And yeah, I don't know. The only reason that this isn't higher is just because when I look at it, I'm not as excited and as intrigued and as wanting to pick it up as the palettes ahead of it. It's really that simple. It's a great palette, great color scheme. I'm very interested in it, but I'm not as interested as I am the other palettes, if that makes sense. And then unfortunately, the last 3 palettes in the bottom 3, which, like I said, I really don't want you guys to think that these are bad palettes, quality, anything like that, because they are far from it, is actually these 3. And I say that because I don't know, I like them. I really, really do. I love the color schemes. I told you guys there's some great quality here, and Odin's Eye has definitely one of my favorite color schemes. But to me, these just, they hit, but they don't hit. You feel me? Like, they're good. They really are, but they don't hit as much as some of these others do. And I don't know. I'm so happy to have them. They're not going anywhere. They're going to be with me through any moves that I make, through anything. They're here to stay, okay? Don't. But I don't know. But if I had to rank them in the order, it would be this one was the lowest. This one was in the middle. This one was up top. just by the color schemes and what I'm interested in, what I would gravitate towards, that's the ranking. For the top 6, we have coming in at number 6, the Huda Beauty Matte Palette. There's just something about this palette that, once again, I find, although yes, it is a somewhat basic Betty palette, those textures that are added in there with the creams really add an element that I appreciate, and it's something that I know I can take on the go. And as I am planning and have quite a few different trips coming up, I'm excited to have this in my collection among some other things, and I definitely could see me taking these on some of my trips to just have an easy everyday eye look if I want to wear makeup that day. This was number 6. But you guys would have seen that in the video. So this is number 6. I'm sorry. Did I count correctly? Yeah. Sea Talk was actually in the top 6. So we're going to pretend that this was over here. Top 6. Matte was number 5. Okay, let's keep going. Coming in at number 4, believe it or not, is Tom Ford. I really enjoy the mattes here. I enjoy the look. I enjoy the textures and the variety. And yeah, to an extent, this is a basic Betty, but I find that there's just enough uniqueness here with the cream to matte powders, and then with the 2 different types of shimmery shades in here, that it's great. I could definitely see me reaching for this again, whether it's for an everyday look, whether I literally travel with this, although I don't know if I'd want to travel with this because if it gets broke, I might cry. But either way, very happy to have it in my collection. And yeah, it's coming in at number 4, right? Yes, number 4 in this ranking. Now, you guys know the last 3 palettes that I have. It is the Cosmic Brushes Muse palette. It is the Scooby-Doo palette with Glam Light, and it is the Odin's Eye palette, the Stone and Rock and Stone. No, I just looked at it and read it wrong. The Stone and Rock palette. Those are the top 3. So why don't you go ahead and pause this video, shout out down below in the comments what you think the top 3 are going to be in the right order. And yeah, I'm gonna take a sip and then we're gonna keep going. Okay, coming in at number 3 is the Stone and Rock palette from Odin's Eye. I love this color scheme. I love it. It is perfect for me. I love the depth. The uniqueness with this sparkly black shade is uncanny, at least for my collection. I love the white. I've used it multiple times. It's literally the white that I used in my eye look today. So this could easily be like a top drawer item for me, because that will be something that I will actively be reaching for. Same with the black. That's actually a really good black. I love the shade. It's a really good palette. It is. So that's how it aimed at number 3. I felt like there was nothing wrong with this palette, nothing that I would change at all. And that's kind of how I feel slightly about the top 3. Slightly. Number 2 is the Scooby-Doo. Now, I said slightly, I wouldn't change anything in the top 3 because technically I would want to change something with this palette. Like I said, these 3 shades, specifically these 2, just didn't hit the full mark on my skin tone. I felt like they were a little bit light. They weren't super pigmented, and I would have wished and hoped that they were more pigmented. But this palette as a whole had to be really high on my ranking because this palette has me actually checking for Glam Light now. The color scheme is beautiful. The range is nice. I love how each row has a deepener shade. So even if I want to stick with a particular shade, or even if I just want a different deepener shade that day, I have it with this palette. You have variety in the textures, the shimmeries, and then you got more metallics in these kind of 2 columns. I just like a lot of things about this palette. I love the little packaging. I love it. I love it. I love it. I can't. So that's why this had to come in at number 2. It's great. It's great. And you know, there may be some tweaks that I would make, but in the grand scheme of things, It ain't half bad. It is not half bad. And then that leaves only one palette left, which of course is the Cosmic Brushes Muse palette. I feel like it is not surprising that this palette has reached this level. For a lot of people, this is their number one palette for that month, that year, whatever. Just this brand in general has a great quality. If you were interested and you thought, oh, this person is just unnecessarily hyping it up, I truly think that this is great quality. I was very much impressed. And I will say I have been impressed by both of the palettes that I picked up from the brand. And that says a lot because the other palette is a pastel palette. And those tend to not really work on my skin tone as I would like. But I am very impressed with that palette. So those are the last 12 eyeshadow palettes that I fully gathered my thoughts on. They're now going to find their home in my palette drawers. I have multiple drawers of eyeshadow palettes. And yeah, I think that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Check out down below for more information on all of these palettes. I will have links to them. And I will also have a link to, well, I can't link to my eye tutorial because that's a membership only link. What I can do is link down below to my membership in case you want to see how I did this eye look. And then I will go ahead and link to my cheek demo on my shorts and my lip demo, which should also be available on my shorts by the time this video goes up. So that's all I got for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.